So you guys know how to use AutoCAD, correct?
Sort of,
Kind of.
Yeah, we do.
All right,
Okay.
Can you see my screen here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So let's turn the map on here. Let's turn some of this other stuff off. Buildings and parking. All right. So this is Ramcat Alley right here. So all we're going to do, the mouse is messing up. So what we did is we went to, I went to Google Earth, found an image, right? And then I like to use something called snipping tool, or I'm pulling it up right now, snip and sketch. Yeah, it's called snip and sketch. It comes usually standard on PCs. And it just allows you to just take out the piece of your site that you want, right? And on Google Earth, it will give you a scale down in the bottom, and you can use that scale down in the bottom to scale your entire image, all right?
Zoom in and show it to them.
Yeah.
Where the scale is.
Let's see, it's down. I think this one is actually taken off Google Earth Pro, so Google Earth Pro doesn't give you.
Okay,
really
well
give you
normally
that,
there'll
but-
be a scale down at the bottom that'll tell you how large, and you can use that to draw your scale.
Yep. And so then have you okay, so let me go pull. How can I do this?
You need an example of that, yeah.
Yeah, how can I do this? Let me,
If you have a picture with one with a scale and just XRF it in or something.
yeah, let me pull up. All right, let me pull up a Google. Let me just go find it again. Give me a second. And then maps. So
You might have to reshare your screen.
Okay. Up share. Screen. All right, I'm just gonna leave the AutoCAD up because I'm gonna. I guess we'll do that. So now that I'm in Google Earth, I'm gonna scroll over here to Seneca. Go in Ramcat Alley. There we are.
So basically right now he's just going in Google Earth and finding his site, and he's gonna either use this snipping tool, or if you have a Apple computer, you can just I think you guys can screenshot it.
Yeah, there's of course lots of ways to do it. I just
So yeah, somehow just getting a picture of the screen, and then he's gonna save it probably as the JPEG.
Yep.
And then he's gonna show you how to insert that JPEG into AutoCAD.
so I'm saving that.
And you guys can see down at the bottom now, because he used Google Earth or Google Maps, there's a scale. It says 100 feet, and that line shows, yeah, down there.
All right. So now over here, can you guys see my AutoCAD? Is it
Yeah.
up? All right, sweet. All right, so I got this one opened up earlier. So I'm gonna go over, there's a couple ways you can do it. So I've set up over here on the right side, this little block. So when I scroll over, it pops out. You can do that. You can all just EXREF as your shortcut. That's just gonna hide it. So if you did that, and then you could click on it and it would bring it up. I don't wanna hide it, so I'm not gonna do it. But EXREF, well, you can find it in your thing. From there, up here, where this little drop-down menu is, attach all these different options. We go to attach image, and it's just gonna bring us up to where we wanna go find it. So I put it on my desktop. No, I didn't. I put it in design coaching. Gotta remember this stuff. There you go. And there we go. All right. Yep, sure. I usually just say okay there. I'm sure it says important things. I don't know. So now we can play with it. We'll just get it on here to get it on here. All right. So now we got it on here. I'm going to move it a little bit. Enter. Because I don't like it down in the corner after I change it. All right. So now we go PL, enter. I like to zoom in. Get right in the
PL
center.
is how you can either do PL or L to draw a line.
That's true. Yeah, I always use PL. It's a habit. I like to go in the center of these little little upshoots, just because it you got to go somewhere, I guess. So, all right. And so now we know we have a line that is the same length as that line, but we don't really know how long that line is. We can look at this and it'll tell us currently that line is 10.6 feet long, right? So now I'm gonna come down here below it. I like to use the little orthogonal mode to make sure that everything's straight and nothing changes, all right? Then I'm gonna do PL again, or L, whichever. And then I'm gonna do 100, enter. So now I've got a 100-foot line. I've got this line, which represents 100 feet on this map, right? But I wanna make sure it's all actually 100 feet. So then I'm gonna highlight the whole thing, all three pieces, AL for a line, and then enter. And then it's asking for to specify first base point. So now I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna grab the end of this line. I'm gonna take orthogonal off. I'm gonna click it on right here. And then the other end of this line, I'm gonna click it right there. And then when I'm done there, enter. And it says scale objects based on alignment points. I'm gonna say yes, we wanna scale everything, all right? So what that does is if that line were crooked, it would end up making the whole thing crooked, because it's also aligning it. That's why it's important you draw a straight line. So along with aligning it, it also makes it the same length. So now if we go back in, and we look at this line, it's supposed to be 100 feet. Go to properties, length 100 feet, right? So now we know. Now we know that if I want a parking spot. And we know a parking spot has to be roughly 9 feet, right? So we go 9 by 20-ish. We go 20. And we know that's going to be the proper scale. It's going to actually be a 9 by 20 box. And if somebody were to go measure it with a ruler, it would be 9 by 20. And that's how we're going to set the map to scale.
Parking spot.
Yeah, parallel parking. That's not the right measurement. Sorry, but yes, thank you, Emily. Good point. And then I'll just go back in and delete these lines because we don't need them. That line, and delete. Any questions about that so far?
Now everything is to scale, so everything you draw will be in real life size. So if you draw a line that's 10 feet in AutoCAD, it's 10 feet in real life. You're drawing at like a 1-to-1 scale.
Does that make sense to everybody? Cool. All right. So that's helpful when you start drawing things like parking lots. You want to know how big a building is. You can actually get the size of something and get pretty close size, without going and measuring or whatever. It's very useful. All right. So from there, there's all kinds of ways to do this. Now, let's say you just wanted to, you wanted to go hand and you didn't want to do any of this. You can now that you've got this, you can come in to your layout mode and whatever size paper you wanted to print on. And say you want to go to the plotter and wherever that is. Is it still in Lee? Is it still working? I don't know.
No, it's not.
Okay.
So
you guys would have to go to over to the library.
Yeah.
But you can print there, right? So all right. So let me save this real fast so we don't do everything. I've already saved it. All right, print. So we got to change the papers. Have you guys messed with the paper? Have you done any of the printing from AutoCAD? Anybody done that? That kind of makes sense. Okay, we'll go over it one time just to kind of help. So when it comes in, it's going to be 8.5 by 11, and that's going to be too small to make your base map on. Base maps 11 by 17. Would you guys agree is kind of a minimum that you want to use depending on the size of your site? If you can go 24 by 36, if you're going to go by hand, that makes it much easier. You can really get some information on there without getting it too small and detailed. Makes sense. So we go in here. Go ahead.
Do 24 by 36 for the example, because they'll probably want to print it that large to draw on it with trace paper.
So 24 by 36 and 36 by 24, whichever one. We'll do 24
Usually
by 36.
Arc D is the best.
There's different ways as far as, so your plot styles up here. I usually just go with monochrome just because I don't do any coloring in AutoCAD. Some people do. It's just different. I like to use Photoshop to do all that. It's just different. But I'll usually go monochrome. And then the name, print to?
Well, for now, I just use Lee Hall printer, but they'll be using the CCIT plot 36, I believe.
Well, and what I'm trying to do right now is, that's probably what you'll be using. I'm going to do a print to PDF.
Okay.
Because what I want to do is just save it as that. But also, one thing I'm doing right now is setting my paper size so that I can fix my scale once I go to print. So we're going to do Microsoft Print PDF and then apply the layout. Just done thinking.
It looks like it changed it back to letter size.
Oh, we'll find out here in a second.
Because when you're using Microsoft Print to PDF, it only has.
That's a good point.
It only has a tabloid and like letter size.
That's a very good point.
Jesse, just go down, change the paper size.
All right.
Don't select the printer.
To well, you're gonna have to. I guess you're gonna have to change.
I'll just change it to. I'll pick a printer. It's fine to make it do what I wanted to do. We'll just do that for now. There it goes. There it goes. Okay, here we go. Arc D, landscape. Hopefully this will change its size. Do what I wanted to do. Once we get it here now, the tracing part really is, it really at that point, it depends on you, on how you want to do about it. Because you're going to trace over in AutoCAD, and I like to make plenty of layers. I make a road layer, parking layer, building layer, and you can break the building layers down as far as residential versus commercial versus whatever if you want. And each one of those layers, what it will do will, once you get it out, when you start printing, you can print off layer by layer. As long as you have an outline or a scale or some way to line them up together, you can print off layer by layer and then put that into Photoshop. And it'll give you all, and you'll have like a residential housing layer, right? It'll have the outline, and it'll have all those houses, and you can make that a color. And then you start laying that, and you go, okay, well now here's the road layer, right? And all those layers will give you information. When you get the road, it'll show you how everything is laid out, and you can look in between those roads and say that's kind of where I can play with, unless I'm gonna start rearranging roads. And so, all right. So anyway, so back in here.
You don't have to, I guess, print it. You guys have questions about like that process?
Show them how to scale it in here.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to, there we go. So now we're over here. We'll try to grab it, bring it to the center. I hear you, kiddo. That's my daughter over there being noisy. So 1 to 10, what's that gonna look like? We're way up, super close, right? So let's go back out. Maybe I'll do 1 to 100. That's a little too small. 150 seems about right. I don't know, but if I wanted to really, sometimes I'll go ahead and make my own. 40, that's pretty close.
Usually what I do.
And then, yeah, you can go in here and set your own. So if you wanted to, we could go in here and make a 135 to make it really fill out the page. It's just, that's a weird scale, but now we have a 1 to 40 scale. So if we were to take this and print it out on 24 by 36 paper, and you guys took your engineer scale, right? And you had your 1 to 40 engineer scale, you'd be able to measure on that map and know how long something was without having to go back to your computer. That all make sense? So that's kind of where you're trying to get to. Sometimes you have to make your own scale simply because of the site's too big or too small and doesn't fit any of the other ones, and you got to kind of get funky with it a little bit. But at that point, and that's if you want to use these measuring scales. Now, if you're going to print this off at a smaller scale, but you still wanted to have something close, when back over here in this, right, one of the layers I will always make, let's go to this one, is a scale. And so this one's turned on, right? And so all I do is I draw a line that maybe 500 feet, whatever, and I know that line's 500 feet. So then if I print it on 11 by 17 and the picture is smaller, I know that line is still going to represent 500 feet on my map, and I can guesstimate, measure, and kind of go from there as I need to. It's just a visual scale. So that's just a couple ways to go about it.
So with this, for creating your base map, you have 2 options. One, you can go ahead and draw all of your lines in AutoCAD and then print it to a PDF and put that in Photoshop and add color and texture in Photoshop. Or you can print this to size and plot it and like use trace paper and hand draw it, and then scan that hand drawing and bring it back into AutoCAD and trace your hand drawing. if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like if you wanted to sketch it out by hand before drawing it in the computer, you could do it that way. And then your hand drawing, you would just follow those lines to make your base map.
And I feel like we can probably have another Zoom session later, and I can show you how, like, if you're bringing it into Photoshop, how to create layers on top of this aerial image so that it looks really good, but you can also kind of see the aerial image below it, like by adding like filters and stuff. So I don't think we're gonna have time for that today, but we can do that.
Yeah, we can get into kind of rendering. Yeah, I think would be one thing that'll help as you trace over this. By the way, you click on your image, and you grab your fade and slide it up. All right. So then, as you start drawing lines on top of here, you can actually see them.
Yeah.
All right. And then it's just, trace and label at that point. And that's same thing by hand, trace and label. If you're going to do it on Photoshop, you're going to draw the outlines on Photoshop, trace and label, right? And once you have it all labeled, that gives you some, you can start analyzing those things. So like, as an example, back here on this one, when I created all the buildings and turned that on, right? And I started looking at it and I was like, well, this building right here backs up to an alley, right? So if we wanted to make an entrance into the site, we can get rid of this building, right? So you can start reviewing your information that you've created on your slides. Yeah. Does that get everybody kind of something to go off of? What questions do we have?
Thanks, Justy.
I'm gonna stop sharing now.
Does anyone have questions?
And then would you put contour lines on top of that base map or do that separately?
Oh, I can, well, I would usually put it on top of that.
I
So
would,
it's fine.
yeah.
So I did, there are some, I can pull up the topo
Well,
line.
usually what I do is I'll trace them on the base map, but then usually what I'll do is I'll make it its own layer. So when I'm printing it and I put it in Photoshop, I want the contour lines to be by themselves without like any of the buildings and everything, so that you can move them around, change the color of it, fade it, make it look really nice when you're in Photoshop.
So let me share this real fast. I got it up.
And you would probably use GIS to find those contour lines.
Yes, that's usually the best place to find them. So you could just print that right there, and then you take that into Photoshop, select and that'll print off black and white, right? You select all the colors, you select the white, invert your selection, then you can make those lines whatever color you want them to be, a lighter gray, a darker gray, a black. At that point, you're just going to brush them whatever color you want them to be. So we can show you all that in Photoshop later. But yeah, topo, it's just be ready to put some headphones on and just disappear into your computer for a little while, because topo is just line dot, and you click. That's just the way it goes. But next thing you know,
It looks nice.
next thing you know, it's all done, and it's very helpful. And you're going to have to do it once you get into design implementation stuff. You start putting a building into a hilltop, you got to know where the topo is so you can rearrange all the topography also. So it's useful.